Yo, chill.
Yo, what up, Apollo?
Yo, I got this idea for a song, right?
Just let me hear it.
It's gonna require you to go back in your brain a little bit. Think about some things you might not really want to talk about. It's called That Day.
That day,
I was just wondering if you'd be able to handle that for me, man.
Yo, of course, man. I got you.
Yo, now I remember that day, shaking with fear, looking at my dad breaking down with a face full of tears, on his hands and knees clutching at what was left of his life. Imagine the pain of another dude fucking your wife. Then he got himself together and looked me in the eyes, hugged me and told me no matter what, we will survive. Followed by, son, everything happens for a reason. Always be yourself and never stop dreaming. The golden rule was never ever tell a lie. Have a firm handshake, look opposition in the eye. That's where I got the vision. The limit is the sky. You're given a life, you live it, then you die. Things would be different if it wasn't for that day. I truly believe God works in a mysterious way. I put down the pen in the delirious state of mind. Thanks, Dad, for having my back 1,000 times. That day I saw my family collapse. On that day,
I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day,
that day I saw my family collapse. On that day,
I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day. So here we go, I'm scarred again. Play my cards with awful sin. I never wanna see my mom collapsing in my yard again. I couldn't take my life when life was hell, so take my life I might as well. So break my mic and take advice. I noticed all the facts were real. I peeled the cap of packs of pills. The capsule spilled into my throat while choking on the time I still. In time I'll heal this, I'm sure. Don't tell my friends I'm impure. I cannot handle vandalizing their perception anymore. Since the walls, they're closing shut and sealing tight, so open up. But I deserve my life to curve around this street of broken trust. I'm hearing things and cannot sleep. Instead of counting murder sheep, my nerves are bouncing back and forth between the walls just like a bee. This life's a tease and I'm a fool. Suicide is not so cool, so drag my juvie ass across the grass and back to school. But let me leave this place I don't belong. Send me home where love is strong, and I can guarantee you'll never see that day.
That day I saw my family collapse. On that day,
I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day,
that day I saw my family collapse. On that day,
I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day.
It's kinda hard reliving that day and all the pain it inflicts. The pain in my heart now becomes the pain in my fist. The anger, pain, and disgust is draining me quick. I got a pistol to my own brain, I'm aiming that shit. I was too scared to pull the trigger, so I threw it in the river. Too much alcohol in my liver to the point it made me shiver. And it was on that day I learned the meaning of life. So now I write it down and try to speak it through mics.
So here I am, I'm in a chair, on parole with vicious stares. I can't repair my life from undercover lovers, wear and tear. She says I'm fine, I disagree, I can't conceive this mystery. My mother sits beside while I confine myself to misery. I leave the ward and see the sun, I can't believe what's done is done. I never thought I'd feel the constant need to eat a greedy gun. So take me home and let me live, no more sleep from sedatives. It's time to be a man instead of acting like a kid.
That day I saw my family collapse. On that day,
I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day,
that day I saw my family collapse. On that
day, I put that knife in their backs. On that day,
I just couldn't relax. On that day,
on that goddamn day.